Question 1. The performance metrics show a significant disparity in scores among applicants for a highly competitive program at Iman University College. One applicant has exceptionally high metrics but a less compelling personal statement, while another has slightly lower metrics but a deeply impactful personal statement detailing overcoming significant challenges. The admissions committee must decide how to weigh these factors according to the Iman University College entrance exam guidelines. Option A. Prioritize a holistic review, considering both performance metrics and the qualitative aspects of the application, such as the personal statement, in line with the comprehensive assessment principles of the Iman University College entrance exam guidelines. Option B. Defer the decision until further informal inquiries can be made to understand the applicant's backgrounds beyond what is presented in their applications, as permitted by the Iman University College entrance exam guidelines. Option C. Select the applicant with the highest performance metrics, as these are the most objective indicators of academic potential, as defined by the Iman University College entrance exam guidelines. Option D. Base the decision primarily on the personal statement, as it offers a deeper insight into the applicant's character and resilience, which are important but not the sole determinants under the Iman University College entrance exam guidelines. The correct answer is A. Prioritize a holistic review, considering both performance metrics and the qualitative aspects of the application, such as the personal statement, in line with the comprehensive assessment principles of the Iman University College entrance exam guidelines. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's academic mission with the need for fair and transparent admissions processes, all within the specific regulatory framework of Iman University College. The performance metrics, while indicating potential, do not solely determine an applicant's suitability. A rigid adherence to these metrics without considering other qualitative factors could lead to overlooking promising candidates or unfairly disadvantaging others. Careful judgment is required to interpret these metrics within the broader context of the Iman University College entrance exam guidelines. The correct approach involves a holistic review that considers the performance metrics as one component among several, alongside other qualitative and contextual factors as outlined in the Iman University College entrance exam guidelines. This approach aligns with the ethical principle of fairness and the regulatory requirement to assess applicants comprehensively. It acknowledges that standardized metrics may not capture the full potential or diverse backgrounds of all applicants, ensuring that the admissions process is equitable and serves the university's goal of admitting well-rounded students. An approach that prioritizes only the performance metrics, disregarding other aspects of the applicant's profile, fails to adhere to the spirit and likely the letter of the Iman University College entrance exam guidelines, which typically advocate for a balanced assessment. This could lead to a violation of principles of fairness and equal opportunity. An approach that relies solely on subjective impressions, without any reference to established performance metrics or stated admission criteria, risks introducing bias and inconsistency, contravening the need for a structured and defensible admissions process, as expected under the Iman University College entrance exam framework. An approach that seeks external influence or pressure to alter admission decisions based on factors not stipulated in the Iman University College entrance exam guidelines is unethical and a clear breach of regulatory compliance, undermining the integrity of the admissions process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Thoroughly understanding the specific regulatory framework and guidelines for the Iman University College entrance exam. 2. Identifying all stipulated assessment criteria, both quantitative and qualitative. 3. Evaluating applicants against these criteria in a consistent and unbiased manner. 4. Documenting the rationale for all admission decisions, particularly in borderline cases. 5. Seeking clarification from relevant university authorities if any aspect of the guidelines is unclear. Question 2. The investigation demonstrates that a significant shortfall in projected enrollment numbers for the upcoming academic year poses a substantial threat to Iman University College's financial stability. A potential donor has expressed strong interest in providing substantial funding, contingent upon the admission of a cohort of students who, while bringing in significant tuition revenue, do not fully meet the established academic entry requirements. The college's leadership is under pressure to secure this funding quickly. Which approach best addresses this situation while adhering to the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines of Iman University College? Option A. Delegate the decision-making authority to the admissions committee to unilaterally waive academic requirements for the donor's proposed cohort without further institutional review or impact analysis. Option B. Immediately reject the donor's offer and focus solely on recruiting students who strictly meet all existing academic criteria, regardless of the immediate financial implications. Option C. Prioritize securing the donor's funding by expediting the admission of the proposed student cohort, even if it means temporarily relaxing certain academic entry requirements, to address the immediate financial crisis. Option D. Conduct a thorough impact assessment of admitting students who do not fully meet academic requirements, considering the implications for academic standards, student success, and the college's reputation, while also exploring alternative funding sources and transparently communicating the situation to relevant governing bodies. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough impact assessment of admitting students who do not fully meet academic requirements, considering the implications for academic standards, student success, and the college's reputation, while also exploring alternative funding sources and transparently communicating the situation to relevant governing bodies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for funding and the ethical obligation to ensure the integrity of the admissions process. The decision-maker must balance financial pressures with the paramount duty to uphold academic standards and fairness, as mandated by the Iman University College's governing regulations and ethical codes. A hasty decision based solely on financial expediency could lead to significant reputational damage and compromise the college's long-term viability. The correct approach involves a thorough impact assessment that prioritizes the integrity of the admissions process and adherence to Iman University College's established admission policies and ethical guidelines. This approach is right because it systematically evaluates the potential consequences of admitting students who may not fully meet the academic criteria, considering the impact on academic standards, the student experience, and the college's reputation. It aligns with the ethical principle of fairness and the regulatory requirement to maintain rigorous admission standards, ensuring that all applicants are assessed equitably and that admitted students are capable of succeeding in their chosen programs. This proactive evaluation allows for informed decision-making that upholds the college's values and regulatory compliance. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on meeting the immediate funding target without considering the academic implications would be ethically unsound and potentially in violation of the college's admission regulations. This approach fails to acknowledge the long-term consequences of compromising academic rigor, such as a potential decline in graduate employability and the erosion of the college's standing. Another incorrect approach that involves bypassing established admission committees or procedures to expedite the admission of specific candidates, even if they are perceived as beneficial for funding, represents a serious ethical lapse and a breach of governance. This undermines the established checks and balances designed to ensure fairness and adherence to policy, creating a risk of favoritism and potentially admitting unqualified individuals, which is contrary to the principles of good governance and academic integrity. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly identify the core dilemma and the competing interests. Second, consult relevant university policies, admission regulations, and ethical codes of conduct. Third, conduct a comprehensive impact assessment, considering academic, ethical, financial, and reputational consequences. Fourth, seek advice from relevant stakeholders, such as the admissions committee, legal counsel, or senior leadership, to gain diverse perspectives. Finally, make a decision that is demonstrably aligned with the college's mission, values, and regulatory obligations, prioritizing long-term integrity and fairness over short-term gains. Question 3. The analysis reveals that during the Iman University College entrance examination application review process, a candidate's submitted academic transcripts show a minor clerical error in the grading of one subject, which, if corrected, would still meet the minimum entry requirements. The admissions officer is under pressure to meet enrollment targets for the upcoming academic year. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical considerations for university admissions? Option A. Consult with a senior faculty member outside the admissions committee for their personal opinion on whether to accept the application. Option B. Proceed with verifying the accuracy of the transcript by contacting the issuing institution, and if confirmed as a clerical error, proceed with the application based on the corrected information. While documenting the process, Option C. Immediately reject the application due to the discrepancy, regardless of its minor nature or potential for correction. Option D. Overlook the discrepancy and proceed with admitting the candidate to meet the enrollment target, assuming the error is minor. Correct answer is B. Proceed with verifying the accuracy of the transcript by contacting the issuing institution, and if confirmed as a clerical error, proceed with the application based on the corrected information while documenting the process. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the practicalities of managing student applications and ensuring a fair admissions process. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can create a temptation to overlook minor discrepancies, but adherence to established university policies and regulatory guidelines is paramount. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between genuine errors and deliberate misrepresentations, and to apply the university's stated policies consistently. The correct approach involves a thorough review of all submitted documents against the stated admission criteria and policies of Iman University College. This approach upholds the principle of fairness and transparency in the admissions process, ensuring that all applicants are evaluated based on the same standards. Specifically, it aligns with the regulatory framework governing university admissions, which mandates that institutions must have clear, published criteria and apply them equitably. This process also supports the university's commitment to academic integrity by preventing unqualified or misrepresented candidates from gaining admission, thereby protecting the reputation and academic standards of Iman University College. An incorrect approach that involves overlooking discrepancies to meet enrollment targets fails to adhere to the university's own admission policies and potentially violates regulatory expectations for fair and transparent admissions. This can lead to the admission of students who do not meet the required standards, undermining the academic quality of the institution and potentially creating future academic support challenges. Another incorrect approach, which is to immediately reject any applicant with even the slightest discrepancy without further investigation or consideration of context, can be overly punitive and may unfairly disadvantage deserving candidates. While accuracy is important, a rigid application of rules without any room for clarification or explanation of minor errors can be seen as inconsistent with a fair and supportive admissions process, and may not align with the spirit of the university's policies if they allow for minor administrative corrections. A third incorrect approach, which is to seek external advice from individuals not authorized by the university's admissions policy to interpret or waive requirements, introduces an element of arbitrariness and can lead to inconsistent decision-making. This bypasses the established internal review and approval processes, potentially compromising the integrity of the admission system and violating internal governance procedures. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic review of the applicant's file against established criteria, a clear understanding of the university's admission policies and any relevant regulatory guidelines, and a commitment to fairness and consistency. When discrepancies arise, the professional should first attempt to clarify them with the applicant, if appropriate, and then apply the university's stated policies for handling such situations. If the situation is complex or involves potential policy exceptions, escalation to the appropriate university committee or designated authority for review and decision is the correct course of action. Question 4. The monitoring system demonstrates unusual patterns in a candidate's responses during the Iman University College entrance exam, suggesting potential external assistance. The admissions committee is aware of the candidate's challenging personal circumstances, which have made preparation difficult. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee to ensure fairness and uphold the integrity of the entrance examination process? Option A. Overlook the monitoring system's findings due to the candidate's difficult personal circumstances, prioritizing their potential for admission over the examination irregularities. Option B, immediately disqualify the candidate from the entrance examination based on the monitoring system's initial findings to maintain the integrity of the process. Option C, report the monitoring system's findings to external academic integrity bodies for guidance before taking any action, bypassing internal university procedures. Option D, initiate a formal investigation into the observed patterns, providing the candidate an opportunity to respond to any findings, and making a decision based on established university examination regulations and academic integrity policies. Correct answer is D. Initiate a formal investigation into the observed patterns, providing the candidate an opportunity to respond to any findings, and making a decision based on established university examination regulations and academic integrity policies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the potential conflict between academic integrity and the need to support a student's academic progress. The university entrance exam, Iman University College entrance exam, operates under a strict framework that prioritizes fairness and the accurate assessment of a candidate's suitability for admission. The monitoring system's findings introduce an element of doubt regarding the candidate's independent performance. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial investigation that adheres to Iman University College's established examination regulations and academic integrity policies. This approach prioritizes the integrity of the admissions process by verifying the candidate's performance without prejudgment. It involves gathering evidence, providing the candidate an opportunity to respond, and making a decision based on established procedures and evidence. This upholds the ethical principle of fairness to all applicants and the regulatory requirement to ensure that admissions are based on genuine merit. An incorrect approach of immediately disqualifying the candidate without a proper investigation fails to uphold the principles of natural justice and due process. It assumes guilt without providing the candidate an opportunity to explain or refute the findings, which is a violation of ethical conduct and potentially the university's own internal regulations regarding student appeals or reviews. Another incorrect approach of overlooking the monitoring system's findings due to sympathy for the candidate's circumstances would compromise the integrity of the entire admissions process. This would be ethically unsound, as it creates an unfair advantage for one candidate over others who have met the admission criteria through their own efforts. It also undermines the university's commitment to academic standards and could set a precedent for leniency that erodes the credibility of future examinations. A further incorrect approach of seeking external advice without following internal university procedures for handling potential examination irregularities would be a breach of confidentiality and established protocols. University policies are designed to ensure consistent and fair handling of such matters, and bypassing them can lead to inconsistent outcomes and potential legal or reputational damage. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Recognizing the potential issue and its implications for academic integrity. 2. Consulting the relevant Iman University College examination regulations and academic integrity policies. 3. Initiating a formal documented investigation process as outlined in the university's guidelines. 4. Gathering all relevant evidence objectively. 5. Providing the candidate with a clear explanation of the concerns and an opportunity to respond. 6. Making a decision based on the evidence and university policies, ensuring fairness and consistency. 7. Documenting the entire process and the final decision. Question 5. To address the challenge of ensuring academic integrity during the Iman University College entrance exam, a proctor observes a candidate appearing to discreetly consult notes hidden within their sleeve. The proctor is under pressure to complete the examination session promptly. Which of the following actions best upholds the principles of fairness and the integrity of the examination process? Option A. Immediately confiscate the candidate's paper and escort them out of the examination hall, informing them they are disqualified for cheating. Option B. Discreetly observe the candidate for the remainder of the examination, noting any further suspicious activity, and report the incident with detailed observations to the examination board for a formal review after the session concludes. Option C. Approach the candidate privately during the examination and instruct them to cease their actions, but allow them to continue the test to avoid disrupting other candidates. Option D. Publicly announce that cheating is not tolerated and warn all candidates to refrain from such behavior, without singling out the individual. The correct answer is A. Immediately confiscate the candidate's paper and escort them out of the examination hall, informing them they are disqualified for cheating. Explanation. The scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain academic integrity and fairness during an entrance examination. The challenge lies in balancing the need to uphold the integrity of the Iman University College entrance exam with the responsibility to ensure a fair assessment for all candidates. This requires careful judgment to identify and address potential breaches of examination regulations without compromising the validity of the results or unfairly penalizing individuals. The correct approach involves a systematic and evidence-based investigation of the alleged misconduct. This means gathering all relevant information, including witness statements, any physical evidence, and the specific examination regulations that may have been violated. The process should be impartial and allow the candidate an opportunity to respond to the allegations. This aligns with the principles of natural justice and the specific guidelines of the Iman University College entrance exam, which would mandate fair procedures in handling academic misconduct. Ethically, this approach upholds the value of honesty and fairness, ensuring that the examination process is perceived as credible by all stakeholders. An incorrect approach that involves immediate disqualification without a thorough investigation fails to adhere to the principles of due process. This would be a direct violation of the examination's procedural fairness requirements, potentially leading to an unjust outcome for the candidate. It also undermines the credibility of the examination process by appearing arbitrary. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the allegations due to the pressure of time or the desire to avoid conflict, represents a significant ethical failure. This inaction allows potential academic dishonesty to go unaddressed, thereby compromising the integrity of the Iman University College entrance exam and devaluing the achievements of honest candidates. It also fails to uphold the university's commitment to academic standards. A further incorrect approach, which is to publicly accuse the candidate without concrete evidence or a formal process, is professionally unacceptable and potentially defamatory. This violates the candidate's right to privacy and a fair hearing, and it can cause irreparable damage to their reputation. It also demonstrates a lack of adherence to established protocols for handling such sensitive matters. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the examination's rules and regulations. When an allegation arises, the professional should first secure any immediate evidence, then initiate a formal, confidential investigation. This investigation should be conducted impartially, allowing the accused candidate to present their side of the story. The decision should be based on the evidence gathered and in strict accordance with the established disciplinary procedures of Iman University College. This structured approach ensures fairness, upholds academic integrity, and maintains the credibility of the examination. Question 6. The review process indicates that an applicant for the Iman University College entrance exam has a qualification that they believe is equivalent to a stated prerequisite, but the exact equivalence is not explicitly detailed in the university's published admission guidelines. The applicant is considering how best to address this situation to ensure their application is considered fairly and accurately. Option A. Submit the application with a detailed explanation of why their qualification is equivalent, attaching supporting documentation, and clearly stating their interpretation of the requirement. Option B. Omit the qualification from their application to avoid any potential issues with its equivalence. Option C. Seek an informal opinion from a current faculty member in the relevant department about the equivalence of their qualification. Option D. Contact the Iman University College admissions office directly to request a formal assessment of their qualifications' equivalence to the stated prerequisite. The correct answer is A. Submit the application with a detailed explanation of why their qualification is equivalent, attaching supporting documentation, and clearly stating their interpretation of the requirement. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate a nuanced understanding of the Iman University College's admission policies, specifically concerning the interpretation of academic prerequisites and the appropriate channels for seeking clarification. The challenge lies in balancing the need to present a strong application with the imperative to adhere strictly to the stated requirements and to engage with the university's established procedures for addressing potential ambiguities. Misinterpreting requirements or bypassing official channels can lead to disqualification or a perception of dishonesty. The correct approach involves proactively seeking clarification from the designated university admissions office regarding the specific interpretation of the equivalent qualification clause. This is the best professional practice because it demonstrates integrity, respect for institutional procedures, and a commitment to accurate self-representation. By directly engaging with the admissions office, the applicant ensures they are acting in accordance with the university's official guidelines and can receive definitive guidance. This aligns with the ethical principle of honesty and transparency in all dealings with educational institutions. An incorrect approach of submitting the application with a self-determined interpretation of the equivalent qualification, without seeking official confirmation, is professionally unacceptable. This fails to adhere to the principle of seeking clarity when faced with ambiguity, potentially leading to a misrepresentation of qualifications. Bypasses the established process for verifying academic equivalence, which could be seen as an attempt to circumvent requirements or as a lack of diligence. Another incorrect approach of omitting the relevant qualification from the application altogether is also professionally unacceptable. This constitutes a failure to disclose pertinent academic information, which is a breach of honesty and can be interpreted as an attempt to conceal a potential deficiency. It undermines the trust between the applicant and the university. A further incorrect approach of contacting a faculty member directly for an informal opinion on the qualification equivalence, rather than the official admissions office, is professionally unsound. While well-intentioned, this bypasses the formal admissions process and the authority of the admissions committee. An informal opinion from a faculty member may not reflect the official policy or be binding, and it deviates from the established channels for admissions-related inquiries. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Carefully reviewing all stated admission requirements and policies. 2. Identifying any areas of ambiguity or uncertainty. 3. Prioritizing official communication channels for clarification. 4. Documenting all communications and decisions. 5. Acting with honesty and transparency throughout the application process. Question 7. What factors determine an applicant's ability to demonstrate genuine understanding and academic integrity during the Iman University College entrance examination, particularly when referencing external information? Option A. The applicant's success in directly copying relevant passages from reference materials to support their arguments. Option B. The applicant's capacity to synthesize information from various sources, rephrase it in their own words, and provide appropriate citations for any borrowed ideas or direct quotes. Option C. The applicant's ability to present information from sources as their own original insights without any acknowledgement. Option D. The applicant's skill in creating fabricated data or sources to enhance the perceived depth of their knowledge. The correct answer is B. The applicant's capacity to synthesize information from various sources, rephrase it in their own words, and provide appropriate citations for any borrowed ideas or direct quotes. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the foundational principles of academic integrity and ethical conduct expected at Iman University College, without resorting to plagiarism or misrepresentation. The challenge lies in assessing the applicant's ability to synthesize information and present it in their own words, reflecting genuine comprehension rather than mere reproduction. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between legitimate use of sources and academic dishonesty. The correct approach involves the applicant demonstrating their understanding by paraphrasing and citing any information used from external sources. This approach is correct because it directly aligns with the core principles of academic integrity, which are paramount in any educational institution, including Iman University College. Specifically, it upholds the ethical obligation to give credit to original authors, thereby avoiding plagiarism, which is a serious academic offense. Furthermore, it showcases the applicant's ability to process and articulate information independently, a key indicator of their potential for success in higher education. This aligns with the implicit guidelines of any reputable university entrance exam, which seeks to evaluate a candidate's genuine knowledge and critical thinking skills. An incorrect approach that involves copying text directly from a source without attribution fails because it constitutes plagiarism. Plagiarism is a direct violation of academic integrity and ethical standards, as it misrepresents another's work as one's own. This demonstrates a lack of honesty and respect for intellectual property, which are fundamental values expected of all students. Another incorrect approach, which involves presenting information from a source but claiming it as personal experience or original thought without any acknowledgement, is also a form of misrepresentation and dishonesty. This undermines the purpose of an entrance exam, which is to assess an applicant's existing knowledge and abilities, not their capacity to deceive. It violates the ethical principle of truthfulness and transparency. A third incorrect approach, which might involve fabricating information or sources to appear more knowledgeable, is fundamentally dishonest and unethical. This not only misleads the admissions committee, but also demonstrates a severe lack of integrity, which is a disqualifying trait for any aspiring student. The professional decision-making process for applicants in such situations should involve a clear understanding of academic honesty policies. Applicants should always strive to present their own thoughts and analyses. When external information is necessary, they must meticulously cite their sources, ensuring that all borrowed ideas or direct quotes are properly attributed. The focus should always be on demonstrating genuine understanding and original thought, even when building upon existing knowledge. Question 8. Strategic planning requires a proactive approach to resource acquisition. Iman University College is exploring a significant partnership with an external organization that has offered substantial funding. However, preliminary information suggests the organization's primary business activities might not directly align with the college's core educational mission, and there are some unverified rumors about their past business practices. The college leadership is eager to secure these funds quickly to launch a new academic program. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of responsible strategic planning and institutional integrity for Iman University College? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive due diligence process, including verifying the organization's financial standing, reputation, and the ethical implications of their business practices, to ensure alignment with Iman University College's mission and regulatory framework before committing to any partnership. Option B. Accept the funding but stipulate that the funds can only be used for administrative overhead, avoiding any direct involvement with the organization's core business activities. Option C. Negotiate a preliminary funding agreement based on the organization's initial offer, with the understanding that a full review will be conducted later to secure immediate financial commitment. Option D. Immediately accept the funding offer to expedite the launch of the new program, with a plan to address any potential issues after the funds are secured. The correct answer is D. Immediately accept the funding offer to expedite the launch of the new program, with a plan to address any potential issues after the funds are secured. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for resources with the long-term integrity of the university's academic and ethical standards. The pressure to secure funding can lead to overlooking potential conflicts of interest or misrepresenting the institution's capabilities, which are critical ethical considerations for any educational body. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any strategic partnership aligns with Iman University College's mission and values and adheres to its established regulatory framework. The correct approach involves a thorough due diligence process that prioritizes transparency and ethical compliance. This includes scrutinizing the potential partner's financial stability, reputation, and alignment with the college's educational objectives. Specifically, it requires adherence to Iman University College's internal policies on partnerships and external funding, which would likely mandate a review by relevant academic and administrative committees, and potentially require disclosure of any potential conflicts of interest. This approach ensures that the college acts responsibly and maintains its academic credibility, safeguarding its reputation and the interests of its students and stakeholders, in line with the principles of good governance expected of educational institutions. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the speed of securing funds without adequate vetting would fail to uphold the college's ethical obligations. This could lead to partnerships with entities that have questionable practices or whose objectives diverge from the college's mission, potentially exposing the college to reputational damage or even regulatory scrutiny if the partner's activities are found to be non-compliant with educational standards or broader ethical guidelines. Another incorrect approach, which involves accepting funding without clearly defining the terms of the partnership and the intended use of funds, creates ambiguity and opens the door to misunderstandings or exploitation, undermining the principles of accountability and responsible financial management. A third incorrect approach, which bypasses established internal approval processes for the sake of expediency, directly violates the college's governance structure and regulatory compliance, demonstrating a disregard for established procedures designed to protect the institution's integrity. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the strategic objective, then identifies all relevant internal policies and external regulations. This is followed by a comprehensive risk assessment, considering both financial and ethical implications. The process should involve consultation with relevant stakeholders and a commitment to transparency and due diligence before any commitment is made. Question 9. Compliance review shows that an applicant for the Iman University College program is the sibling of a senior faculty member. The applicant's academic record is strong, but falls slightly below the typical benchmark for direct admission, with a notable weakness in one specific subject area. The faculty member has informally inquired about the applicant's status and expressed a desire for their sibling to be admitted. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions officer? Option A. Evaluate the applicant strictly based on the published admission criteria and academic merit, documenting all assessments, and if a conflict of interest is perceived, declare it and seek guidance from the head of admissions. Option B. Recommend the applicant for admission, highlighting their strong overall academic record and the potential for improvement, while subtly mentioning the familial connection to the faculty member to encourage favorable consideration. Option C. Advise the faculty member that their sibling's application is being reviewed and assure them that every effort will be made to support their sibling's admission, given the family relationship. Option D. Process the application as usual, but give the applicant a slight advantage in the evaluation to acknowledge the faculty member's position and their expressed interest. The correct answer is A. Evaluate the applicant strictly based on the published admission criteria and academic merit, documenting all assessments, and if a conflict of interest is perceived, declare it and seek guidance from the head of admissions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to navigate potential conflicts of interest and uphold the integrity of the university's admissions process, which is fundamental to its reputation and the fairness of its operations. The decision-making process must prioritize adherence to established university policies and ethical conduct over personal relationships or perceived advantages. The correct approach involves a transparent and objective assessment of the applicant's qualifications against the published admission criteria, without any undue influence from the personal relationship. This aligns with the ethical principles of fairness, impartiality, and the avoidance of conflicts of interest, which are implicitly expected in any academic institution's admissions procedures. University regulations typically mandate that all applicants be evaluated solely on merit and adherence to established criteria, ensuring a level playing field. An incorrect approach that involves overlooking or downplaying the applicant's weaknesses due to the personal connection would be a failure to uphold the principle of objective evaluation. This could lead to admitting a less qualified candidate, thereby compromising the academic standards of Iman University College and potentially creating an unfair advantage over other applicants. Such an action would violate the implicit trust placed in admissions officers to act with integrity. Another incorrect approach, which is to immediately recommend the applicant for admission without a thorough review, represents a severe breach of due diligence and impartiality. This bypasses the established admissions process and demonstrates a clear conflict of interest, prioritizing personal acquaintance over institutional policy and fairness. This action would undermine the credibility of the admissions committee and the university as a whole. A further incorrect approach, which is to attempt to subtly influence the admissions committee by highlighting the personal connection without disclosing it, is deceptive and unethical. This manipulates the process by leveraging a personal relationship without transparency, which is contrary to the principles of honesty and integrity expected in academic admissions. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying potential conflicts of interest. They should then consult relevant university policies and ethical guidelines regarding admissions and conflicts of interest. The next step is to ensure all decisions are based on objective criteria and documented evidence. If a conflict of interest is present, the professional should recuse themselves from the decision-making process or seek guidance from a supervisor or designated ethics officer to ensure the integrity of the process is maintained. Question 10. The assessment process reveals that a candidate for the Iman University College entrance exam has experienced a significant personal emergency in the week leading up to the examination, which has understandably impacted their preparation and current well-being. The candidate is concerned about their ability to perform at their best and is considering how to address this situation. Which of the following represents the most ethically sound and procedurally correct course of action for the candidate? Option A. Proactively contact the Iman University College entrance exam administration to explain the situation and inquire about any available provisions or alternative arrangements, while committing to adhere strictly to their guidance. Option B. Proceed with the examination as scheduled, hoping that their performance will not be significantly affected, and address any potential issues with their results after the examination is concluded. Option C. Seek advice from friends or family on how to subtly adjust their approach during the examination to compensate for their reduced preparation, without formally notifying the university. Option D. Discreetly mention the personal emergency to the invigilator on the day of the examination, hoping for some leniency or understanding during the test. The correct answer is A. Proactively contact the Iman University College entrance exam administration to explain the situation and inquire about any available provisions or alternative arrangements, while committing to adhere strictly to their guidance. Explanation. The assessment process for Iman University College entrance exam requires candidates to demonstrate an understanding of ethical principles and their application within a specific regulatory context. This scenario is professionally challenging because it involves a potential conflict between a candidate's personal circumstances and the integrity of the examination process. The need for careful judgment arises from balancing fairness to the candidate with the university's commitment to upholding academic standards and preventing any form of unfair advantage. The correct approach involves a transparent and ethical response that prioritizes adherence to the Iman University College entrance exam stated regulations and guidelines. This approach is right because it upholds the principle of fairness and equal opportunity for all candidates. By seeking clarification from the examination board and adhering strictly to their directives, the candidate demonstrates integrity and respect for the established rules. This aligns with the ethical imperative to act with honesty and to avoid any actions that could be perceived as compromising the examination's validity. The university's regulations are designed to ensure a level playing field, and any deviation, even if seemingly minor or driven by personal hardship, can undermine this objective. An incorrect approach that involves withholding information from the examination board is ethically flawed because it constitutes a lack of transparency. This failure to disclose relevant personal circumstances that might impact performance, or that could be misinterpreted as an attempt to gain an advantage, violates the trust placed in candidates by the institution. It also risks a later discovery of the undisclosed information, which could lead to more severe consequences, including disqualification. Another incorrect approach that involves attempting to subtly influence the examination process based on personal circumstances, without explicit permission or guidance from the university, is also professionally unacceptable. This could manifest as seeking preferential treatment or attempting to leverage personal hardship to gain an advantage, which directly contravenes the principle of meritocracy and fair assessment. Such actions undermine the integrity of the examination and demonstrate a disregard for the established rules and ethical conduct expected of prospective students. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the relevant university regulations and ethical guidelines. When faced with a situation that presents a potential conflict or ambiguity, the first step is always to consult the official documentation. If clarification is still needed, the next step is to proactively and transparently communicate with the designated authority within the institution, in this case, the Iman University College Entrance Exam Board. This communication should be factual and seek guidance on how to proceed in accordance with the established rules. Avoid making assumptions or taking actions that could be construed as circumventing the process. Prioritizing honesty, transparency, and adherence to regulations is paramount in maintaining professional integrity. Question 11. Market research demonstrates that Iman University College faces increasing pressure to meet its enrollment targets for the upcoming academic year. The admissions committee is reviewing applications, and a proposal is made to consider a broader range of academic backgrounds and potentially offer conditional admissions to a larger number of students to ensure targets are met. Which approach best upholds the integrity of the admissions process and adheres to the principles expected of an educational institution? Option A. Broaden the scope of acceptable academic backgrounds and offer conditional admissions to a significantly larger pool of applicants to guarantee enrollment targets are met, even if some candidates do not fully meet the initial academic benchmarks. Option B. Prioritize applicants who have connections to influential individuals or potential donors, offering them preferential consideration to secure their enrollment and foster future support for the university. Option C. Strictly adhere to the predefined admission criteria for all applicants, ensuring a consistent and objective evaluation process, and communicate any challenges in meeting targets through appropriate institutional channels. Option D. Implement a flexible interpretation of the admission criteria, allowing committee members to make subjective judgments based on perceived potential rather than strict adherence to established academic requirements, to accommodate a wider range of candidates. The correct answer is C. Strictly adhere to the predefined admission criteria for all applicants, ensuring a consistent and objective evaluation process, and communicate any challenges in meeting targets through appropriate institutional channels. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a university's financial needs and the ethical imperative to maintain academic integrity and transparency in its admissions process. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can lead to a temptation to relax established criteria, which could compromise the quality of the student body and the reputation of Iman University College. Careful judgment is required to balance institutional goals with the fundamental principles of fairness and meritocracy in education. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective evaluation of all applicants based on the established admission criteria, without undue influence from enrollment targets or external pressures. This aligns with the regulatory framework and guidelines for university admissions, which emphasize fairness, equal opportunity, and the selection of candidates best suited for academic success. Adhering to these principles ensures that the admissions process is defensible, transparent, and upholds the academic standards of Iman University College. An incorrect approach would be to prioritize meeting enrollment targets by lowering admission standards for certain applicants. This action would violate the principle of equal treatment and could lead to the admission of students who are not academically prepared, potentially impacting their success and the overall academic environment. Furthermore, it undermines the credibility of the admissions process and could lead to reputational damage for the university. Another incorrect approach would be to allow external stakeholders, such as donors or influential individuals, to exert pressure on the admissions committee to admit specific candidates who may not meet the standard criteria. This introduces bias and favoritism, compromising the integrity of the selection process and violating ethical guidelines that demand impartiality in academic admissions. Such actions can lead to accusations of unfairness and can erode trust in the institution. A third incorrect approach would be to selectively waive certain admission requirements for a group of applicants without a clear, objective, and documented rationale that is consistent with the university's stated policies. This creates an uneven playing field and suggests that the rules are not applied uniformly, which is ethically unsound and likely to contravene regulatory expectations for fair admissions practices. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a commitment to upholding the established admission policies and procedures. When faced with pressure to deviate, professionals should 1. Clearly understand the university's admission criteria and the rationale behind them. 2. Assess the potential impact of any proposed deviation on academic standards and fairness. 3. Consult relevant university policies and guidelines. 4. Seek guidance from senior management or the admissions committee if ambiguity or pressure exists. And 5. Prioritize transparency and objectivity in all decisions, ensuring that the admissions process is fair and equitable for all applicants. Question 12. The control framework reveals that Iman University College is committed to admitting students based on academic merit and adherence to ethical admissions practices. During the admissions cycle, a senior faculty member strongly advocates for an applicant, citing personal connections and potential future contributions to the university, despite the applicant's academic record showing some inconsistencies. The admissions committee must decide how to proceed. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee? Option A. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's academic record and supporting documents, objectively assessing their suitability against the established admission criteria, while acknowledging the faculty member's input but not allowing it to override objective assessment. Option B. Overlook the minor inconsistencies in the applicant's academic record to meet the university's enrollment targets, as suggested by the faculty member. Option C. Grant the applicant preferential admission status due to the faculty member's advocacy and the potential for future financial benefits to the university. Option D. Prioritize the faculty member's recommendation and ensure the applicant is admitted, given their potential future contributions and the faculty member's influence. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's academic record and supporting documents, objectively assessing their suitability against the established admission criteria, while acknowledging the faculty member's input but not allowing it to override objective assessment. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the applicant to balance the university's stated commitment to academic integrity with the practical realities of admissions, potentially involving external influences or pressures. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the admissions process remains fair, transparent, and aligned with the university's ethical standards and any applicable regulatory guidelines for higher education institutions in Malaysia. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective review of all application materials, including academic records, personal statements, and any supporting documents, without undue influence from external parties. This approach upholds the principles of meritocracy and equal opportunity, which are fundamental to a reputable educational institution. It aligns with the implied regulatory framework for university admissions in Malaysia, which emphasizes fairness and adherence to established criteria. By focusing on objective assessment, the university demonstrates its commitment to academic standards and avoids any perception of favoritism or compromise. An incorrect approach that involves prioritizing recommendations from influential individuals over objective academic merit would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the established admissions criteria and an undue influence from external parties, potentially violating ethical principles of fairness and impartiality. Such an approach could undermine the credibility of the university and lead to the admission of less qualified candidates, impacting the overall academic environment. Another incorrect approach, which is to overlook discrepancies in an applicant's academic record due to pressure to meet enrollment targets, represents a significant ethical and potentially regulatory failure. This prioritizes institutional targets over academic integrity and the quality of the student body. It compromises the university's commitment to admitting students who meet the required academic standards and could lead to a decline in academic performance and reputation. A third incorrect approach, which is to grant preferential treatment to applicants based on their family's financial contributions or potential future donations, is a clear violation of ethical principles and likely contravenes regulations governing admissions in Malaysian higher education. This practice introduces a commercial element into academic admissions, undermining the merit-based system and creating an inequitable playing field for all applicants. It can lead to a perception of corruption and damage the university's standing. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's admissions policy and any relevant regulatory guidelines. Applicants should be assessed based on predefined, objective criteria. Any external recommendations or influences should be considered only within the established framework and should not override the primary assessment of academic suitability. Transparency and consistency in the application of these criteria are paramount to maintaining the integrity of the admissions process. Question 13. Risk assessment procedures indicate that the current student admissions process at Iman University College is experiencing significant delays, impacting applicant satisfaction and enrollment targets. Which of the following approaches best addresses this issue while upholding the integrity of the admissions process? Option A. Empowering entry-level administrative staff to make final admissions decisions based on their immediate interpretation of the application materials. Option B. Automating the final admissions decision for all applicants to significantly speed up the turnaround time, without manual review for any stage. Option C. Reducing the number of mandatory documents required for application submission to expedite processing, even if some documents are traditionally used for verification. Option D. Implementing a comprehensive review of the admissions workflow to identify and eliminate redundant steps, enhance digital integration, and standardize documentation requirements, ensuring all regulatory and institutional policies are maintained. The correct answer is D. Implementing a comprehensive review of the admissions workflow to identify and eliminate redundant steps, enhance digital integration, and standardize documentation requirements, ensuring all regulatory and institutional policies are maintained. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing the need for efficient student onboarding with the imperative to adhere to Iman University College's established admission policies and regulatory requirements. The pressure to expedite processes can lead to overlooking critical steps, potentially compromising the integrity of the admission system and the quality of the student body. Professional judgment is required to identify and implement process improvements that enhance efficiency without sacrificing compliance or fairness. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the existing admissions workflow to identify bottlenecks and areas for improvement. This includes mapping the current process, gathering feedback from admissions staff and applicants, and then designing and implementing changes that streamline operations while ensuring all regulatory and institutional requirements are met. This aligns with the principles of good governance and operational excellence expected within an educational institution, aiming to improve the student experience and institutional effectiveness. Incorrect approach is analysis. An approach that focuses solely on reducing the number of required documents without considering their regulatory or academic significance would be incorrect. This could lead to admitting students who do not meet the fundamental criteria, violating institutional policies and potentially external accreditation standards. An approach that prioritizes speed by automating decision-making without human oversight for complex cases or exceptions would also be flawed. This bypasses the nuanced evaluation required for certain applications and could result in unfair or inconsistent admissions outcomes, contravening principles of fairness and due process. An approach that involves delegating the final admissions decision to junior administrative staff without proper training or clear guidelines on policy interpretation would be a significant failure. This undermines the authority of the admissions committee and risks inconsistent application of criteria, potentially leading to compliance breaches and reputational damage. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such situations should adopt a structured problem-solving methodology. This involves clearly defining the problem, inefficient onboarding, identifying the root causes through data and feedback, brainstorming potential solutions, evaluating these solutions against institutional policies, regulatory frameworks, and ethical considerations, and then implementing and monitoring the chosen solution. Continuous improvement should be a core principle, with regular reviews to ensure processes remain effective and compliant. Question 14. Operational review demonstrates that the Iman University College entrance exam administration process could be streamlined by allowing candidates to submit digital copies of certain prerequisite documents instead of physical ones, which would reduce processing time and costs. However, the exam's regulatory framework is silent on the specific format of document submission. Which of the following actions best aligns with the absolute priority of adhering to the Iman University College entrance exam's regulatory framework? Option A. Proceed with accepting digital document submissions immediately, as streamlining operations is a standard university practice and the regulations do not explicitly prohibit it. Option B. Implement a pilot program for digital submissions for a small group of candidates and assess its impact before a full rollout, assuming it is acceptable unless explicitly forbidden. Option C. Seek informal advice from other university admissions officers who have experience with similar entrance exams to gauge their approach to document submission formats. Option D. Consult the official Iman University College entrance exam guidelines and any associated administrative directives to determine if digital document submission is permissible or if specific requirements for document format exist. The correct answer is A. Proceed with accepting digital document submissions immediately, as streamlining operations is a standard university practice, and the regulations do not explicitly prohibit it. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's operational needs and the strict adherence to the Iman University College entrance exams regulatory framework. The challenge lies in ensuring that any proposed operational adjustments do not inadvertently violate the spirit or letter of the exam's guidelines, particularly concerning fairness, accessibility, and the integrity of the assessment process. Careful judgment is required to balance practical considerations with the paramount importance of maintaining a compliant and equitable examination environment. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the Iman University College entrance exam's specific regulatory framework to identify any provisions that might be impacted by the proposed operational changes. This includes understanding the guidelines related to candidate eligibility, examination administration, and the definition of acceptable accommodations. By consulting these specific regulations, the university can ensure that any adjustments are permissible and do not create an unfair advantage or disadvantage for any candidate. This proactive and compliant approach upholds the integrity of the examination process and demonstrates a commitment to regulatory adherence. An incorrect approach would be to implement changes based solely on operational convenience, without first verifying their compatibility with the Iman University College entrance exams regulations. This could lead to a violation of the exams rules, potentially invalidating results or leading to disciplinary action. Another incorrect approach would be to assume that general best practices for university admissions apply, without considering the unique and specific regulatory requirements of this particular entrance examination. This oversight fails to acknowledge the absolute priority of the specified exams framework and risks noncompliance. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance above all else when dealing with matters directly governed by a specific examinations framework. This involves 1. Identifying the relevant regulatory framework, in this case, the Iman University College entrance exam guidelines. 2. Analyzing the proposed action against each relevant provision of that framework. 3. Seeking clarification from the examination authority if any ambiguity exists. 4. Implementing only those actions that are demonstrably compliant. Question 15. The assessment process reveals that an applicant for the Iman University College entrance exam has meticulously prepared their application. During the review of their submitted documents, it is noted that while the applicant has genuine academic achievements, they have also slightly embellished their description of a volunteer role to highlight leadership responsibilities that were only tangentially involved. The applicant believes this minor exaggeration will strengthen their application without being factually untrue in a significant way. Which of the following approaches best reflects the expected ethical and regulatory compliance for this applicant? Option A. The applicant should remove the description of the volunteer role entirely to avoid any potential scrutiny regarding its accuracy. Option B. The applicant should immediately correct their application to accurately reflect the scope of their leadership involvement in the volunteer role, ensuring all descriptions are precise and truthful. Option C. The applicant should proceed with the application as is, believing that minor embellishments are common practice and acceptable in competitive admissions processes. Option D. The applicant should add further details to the volunteer role description to further emphasize leadership, assuming that the admissions committee will appreciate the effort to present themselves in the best possible light. The correct answer is B. The applicant should immediately correct their application to accurately reflect the scope of their leadership involvement in the volunteer role, ensuring all descriptions are precise and truthful. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the applicant to demonstrate an understanding of ethical conduct and adherence to academic integrity principles, which are fundamental to the Iman University College's values and the broader academic community. Misrepresenting qualifications or experience can have severe consequences, including immediate disqualification and damage to one's reputation. The applicant must navigate the pressure of a competitive entrance exam while maintaining honesty and transparency. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves truthfully and accurately presenting all qualifications and experiences. This aligns with the Iman University College's commitment to academic integrity and ethical conduct, as outlined in its entrance examination guidelines. Honesty in application materials is paramount, ensuring that the admissions committee can make informed decisions based on genuine merit and suitability. This approach upholds the principle of fairness to all applicants and respects the integrity of the examination process. Incorrect approach is analysis. Presenting inflated or fabricated experience is a direct violation of academic integrity and honesty. This misrepresentation undermines the admissions process and demonstrates a lack of ethical judgment, which is a critical requirement for all students at Iman University College. Such an action would likely lead to disqualification. Claiming proficiency in a skill that is not possessed, even if it is a minor aspect of the application, is also a form of dishonesty. It misleads the admissions committee about the applicant's capabilities and preparedness for the program. This failure to be truthful about one's abilities is ethically unsound and contradicts the university's standards. Omitting relevant experiences or qualifications, even if not explicitly asked for, can be considered misleading if it creates a false impression of the applicant's background. While not as severe as fabrication, it can still be seen as a lack of transparency and an attempt to present a curated, potentially incomplete picture of oneself, which is not in the spirit of a comprehensive and honest application. Professional reasoning. Professionals in academic and professional settings must always prioritize honesty, integrity, and transparency. When faced with situations requiring self-representation, the decision-making process should involve 1. Understanding the explicit and implicit expectations of the institution regarding truthfulness. 2. Evaluating personal qualifications and experiences against these expectations with absolute honesty. 3. Communicating all relevant information accurately and without embellishment. 4. Recognizing that any form of misrepresentation, however minor it may seem, can have significant ethical and professional repercussions. Question 16. The control framework reveals a proposed modification to the student information system that could streamline admissions processing. However, this modification might also alter how sensitive personal data is accessed and stored. What is the most appropriate initial step to ensure compliance with the Iman University College's regulatory guidelines for data handling and system changes? Option A. Immediately implement the modification to capitalize on the potential efficiency gains in admissions processing. Option B. Consult with a few trusted colleagues informally to gauge their opinions on the proposed changes. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to evaluate the potential effects of the modification on data integrity, confidentiality, and availability, and to identify necessary safeguards. Option D. Focus solely on the benefits of the modification for admissions processing and proceed with implementation if the benefits appear significant. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to evaluate the potential effects of the modification on data integrity, confidentiality, and availability, and to identify necessary safeguards. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to balance the immediate need for information with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect sensitive data. The Iman University College entrance exam's regulatory framework, which emphasizes integrity and responsible data handling, dictates that any access to or use of student information must be strictly for authorized purposes and in accordance with established protocols. The challenge lies in discerning the legitimate scope of inquiry within the control framework's guidelines. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of the control framework's provisions regarding data access and impact assessment. This approach prioritizes a systematic evaluation of how the proposed changes might affect the integrity, confidentiality, and availability of student data. It necessitates identifying potential risks, understanding the scope of impact, and developing mitigation strategies before implementation. This aligns with the Iman University College's commitment to responsible data governance and the ethical principles of data protection, ensuring that any changes are implemented in a manner that safeguards student information and maintains trust. An incorrect approach that involves immediately proceeding with the changes without a formal impact assessment fails to adhere to the control framework's requirement for due diligence. This bypasses critical risk identification and mitigation steps, potentially leading to data breaches, unauthorized access, or disruption of essential services, all of which are serious regulatory and ethical violations. Another incorrect approach, which involves seeking informal opinions from colleagues without documenting the assessment process, undermines the transparency and accountability expected under the control framework. This informal method lacks the rigor required for a comprehensive impact assessment and leaves the institution vulnerable to unaddressed risks. Finally, an approach that focuses solely on the perceived benefits of the changes without considering the potential negative consequences for data security and privacy directly contravenes the principles of responsible data management embedded within the Iman University College's regulatory guidelines. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly define the proposed change and its objectives. Second, consult the relevant control framework and associated policies to understand the specific requirements for implementing such changes, particularly concerning data handling. Third, conduct a formal impact assessment, meticulously documenting potential risks, the scope of impact on data, and proposed mitigation strategies. Fourth, seek appropriate approvals based on the assessment findings. Finally, implement the changes in a controlled manner, with ongoing monitoring to ensure compliance and effectiveness. Question 17. System analysis indicates that a prospective student applying for Iman University College's entrance examination has experienced a significant personal emergency immediately prior to the scheduled examination date, impacting their ability to prepare adequately. The admissions officer is faced with a decision on how to proceed. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action? Strictly adhering to Iman University College's regulatory framework and guidelines for entrance examinations. Option A. Make a personal decision to allow the student to take the examination at a later date, based on the perceived severity of their personal emergency. Option B. Immediately grant the student a rescheduled examination date and time, offering additional preparation resources. Option C. Advise the student that the examination must be taken as scheduled, as no exceptions can be made for personal circumstances. Option D. Consult Iman University College's official policy on special considerations for examination, and follow the prescribed procedure for such circumstances. Correct answer is B. Immediately grant the student a rescheduled examination date and time, offering additional preparation resources. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate needs of a student with the established academic integrity policies of Iman University College. The pressure to accommodate a student facing personal difficulties must be weighed against the fundamental principles of fair assessment and the integrity of the examination process. Misjudging this balance could lead to either compromising academic standards or failing to provide necessary support, both of which have significant ethical and regulatory implications for the institution. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of Iman University College's established policies regarding special considerations for examinations. This approach is right because it adheres strictly to the regulatory framework and guidelines set forth for the university's entrance exams. By consulting and applying these specific policies, the university ensures consistency, fairness, and transparency in its decision-making process. This upholds academic integrity and demonstrates a commitment to following its own established rules, which are designed to address such situations equitably. Incorrect approach is analysis. An approach that immediately grants a special examination without consulting or following established university policies is ethically flawed. It bypasses the due process designed to ensure fairness to all candidates and could set a precedent that undermines the integrity of the entrance examination. This failure to adhere to institutional guidelines constitutes a regulatory and ethical lapse. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the student's request outright, without any consideration or exploration of available support mechanisms within the university's framework. This demonstrates a lack of empathy and a failure to uphold the ethical responsibility to support students, even within the constraints of examination regulations. It neglects the potential for compassionate consideration as outlined in university policies. Finally, an approach that involves making an ad hoc decision based solely on personal judgment without reference to any documented policy or guideline is highly problematic. This introduces subjectivity and bias into the decision-making process, violating principles of fairness and consistency. It also fails to provide a defensible rationale for the decision, leaving the university vulnerable to accusations of arbitrary action. Professional reasoning. Professionals in university admissions and academic administration should adopt a structured decision-making process. This involves 1. Identifying the core issue and the stakeholders involved. 2. Consulting the relevant institutional policies, regulations, and ethical codes of conduct. 3. Evaluating the situation against these established guidelines, considering all relevant factors. 4. Seeking advice from appropriate committees or senior staff if the situation is complex or falls outside clear policy parameters. 5. Making a decision that is consistent with policy, fair to all parties, and ethically sound. 6. Documenting the decision and the rationale behind it. Question 18. Quality control measures reveal a pattern of unusual answer sheet submission for a specific section of the Iman University College entrance examination, suggesting potential collusion among a group of candidates. What is the most appropriate immediate step to take to address this finding? Option A. Immediately disqualify all candidates whose submissions match the identified pattern to prevent further compromise of the examination's integrity. Option B. Advise the examination invigilators to monitor the candidates involved more closely in subsequent examination sessions without formally documenting the current findings. Option C. Disregard the findings as a potential statistical anomaly to avoid unnecessary administrative burden and potential disputes with candidates. Option D. Initiate a formal investigation into the suspected collusion, gathering all relevant evidence, and consulting the college's examination misconduct policy before any action is taken against the candidates. The correct answer is D. Initiate a formal investigation into the suspected collusion, gathering all relevant evidence, and consulting the college's examination misconduct policy before any action is taken against the candidates. Explanation. The scenario presents a challenge in ensuring the integrity of the Iman University College entrance examination process, specifically concerning the handling of potential irregularities identified during quality control. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for a fair and transparent examination with the imperative to uphold the college's academic standards and regulatory compliance. A hasty or biased response could compromise the validity of the examination and damage the institution's reputation. The correct approach involves a systematic, evidence-based investigation that adheres strictly to the Iman University College's established examination regulations and ethical guidelines. This approach prioritizes fairness to all candidates by ensuring that any action taken is based on concrete findings and due process. It involves gathering all relevant information, consulting with the appropriate examination board or disciplinary committee as stipulated by the college's internal policies, and making a decision that is consistent with the established rules. This upholds the principle of academic integrity, which is paramount in any educational institution, and is likely a core tenet of the Iman University College's regulatory framework. An incorrect approach that involves immediate disqualification without a thorough investigation fails to provide due process to the candidate. This is a significant ethical and regulatory failure, as it presumes guilt without evidence and violates the principle of natural justice. Another incorrect approach, such as ignoring the findings to avoid controversy, represents a dereliction of duty and a failure to uphold the college's commitment to academic integrity. This can lead to the admission of unqualified students, undermining the college's reputation and the value of its degrees. Furthermore, failing to document the process and the decision-making rationale is a procedural failure that can lead to future challenges and a lack of accountability. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the relevant college regulations and ethical codes. They should then meticulously gather and verify all evidence related to the identified irregularity. This evidence should be presented to the designated authority within the college for review and decision-making, following the established procedures. Transparency, fairness, and adherence to established protocols are key to navigating such challenges effectively and maintaining the credibility of the examination process. Question 19. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a new revenue-generating online course offering could significantly boost Iman University College's income. However, the course content has been criticized for potentially diluting academic rigor and may not fully align with the college's established pedagogical standards. Which approach best reflects responsible decision-making within the Iman University College's regulatory framework? Option A. Prioritize the course's alignment with Iman University College's mission and regulatory guidelines for academic quality and student welfare, even if it delays or modifies the revenue potential. Option B. Implement the course immediately to capture the financial benefits, with a plan to address any academic concerns reactively. Option C. Focus on the course's appeal to a broad external market to maximize enrollment and revenue, assuming internal academic standards can be adjusted to accommodate it. Option D. Conduct a superficial review of the course content, focusing primarily on its marketability and potential for profit, with minimal consideration for its impact on academic standards. Correct answer is B. Implement the course immediately to capture the financial benefits, with a plan to address any academic concerns reactively. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate financial benefits of a new program against potential long-term reputational risks and the ethical obligation to uphold the university's core values. The decision-maker must consider not only the quantifiable costs and benefits, but also the qualitative impact on student experience, academic integrity, and the university's standing within the Iman University College community and beyond. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any decision aligns with the institution's mission and regulatory compliance. The correct approach involves a comprehensive assessment that prioritizes the alignment of the proposed program with Iman University College's mission and regulatory framework, even if it means foregoing immediate financial gains. This approach is justified by the paramount importance of maintaining academic integrity and adhering to the specific guidelines and ethical standards set forth by Iman University College. The university's regulatory framework likely emphasizes student welfare, educational quality, and ethical conduct, which would supersede purely financial considerations when they conflict. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on maximizing short-term revenue without adequately considering the ethical implications or potential negative impacts on student learning and academic reputation would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the university's core mission and the ethical duty to provide a high-quality, integrity-driven educational experience. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes external stakeholder satisfaction over internal academic standards would also be flawed. This neglects the primary responsibility of the university to its students and the academic community, potentially leading to a breach of trust and a violation of the spirit, if not the letter, of the Iman University College's governing principles. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multifaceted evaluation. First, clearly define the objectives and constraints, including financial targets, educational goals, and regulatory requirements. Second, identify all potential stakeholders and their interests. Third, systematically analyze the costs and benefits of each option, encompassing both tangible and intangible factors. Fourth, critically assess each option against the Iman University College's mission, values, and specific regulatory framework. Finally, select the option that best balances financial viability with ethical responsibility and long-term institutional sustainability, ensuring full compliance with all applicable guidelines. Question 20. The efficiency study reveals a pattern of delayed submission of supporting documents by a significant number of applicants to Iman University College's postgraduate programs. Which of the following is the most appropriate initial step for the admissions committee to take? Option A. Contact the relevant external accreditation bodies to report the observed delays in document submission. Option B. Conduct informal interviews with a select group of students who submitted late to understand their personal reasons for the delay. Option C. Immediately flag the files of all applicants who submitted documents late for further scrutiny and potential rejection. Option D. Initiate a review of the admissions data management system and the application submission workflow to identify potential bottlenecks or areas for process improvement. The correct answer is D. Initiate a review of the admissions data management system and the application submission workflow to identify potential bottlenecks or areas for process improvement. Explanation: the efficiency study reveals a potential discrepancy in how student admission data is being managed at Iman University College. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an administrator to balance the need for accurate data reporting with the ethical considerations of student privacy and the integrity of the admissions process. A hasty or biased approach could lead to misinterpretations, unfair judgments, or even breaches of confidentiality, impacting both individual students and the college's reputation. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any investigation or action taken is fair, transparent, and compliant with established university policies and relevant ethical guidelines. The correct approach involves a systematic and objective review of the admission data, focusing on identifying any systemic issues or procedural gaps that might explain the observed inefficiencies. This approach prioritizes data integrity and process improvement, without making premature assumptions about individual student actions or motives. It aligns with the ethical principles of fairness and due diligence expected of university administrators. Specifically, it adheres to the implicit guidelines of maintaining academic integrity and ensuring equitable treatment of all applicants and students, which are foundational to any educational institution's operational framework. The focus is on understanding the why behind the inefficiency through a neutral lens, which is a cornerstone of responsible data management and administrative practice. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on individual student files to identify potential errors without first understanding the broader data management system is professionally unacceptable. This approach risks singling out students unfairly and could lead to a breach of privacy if personal data is accessed without proper justification or oversight. It fails to address the root cause of the inefficiency, which may lie in the data collection or processing mechanisms themselves, not in individual student submissions. Another incorrect approach that involves immediately reporting the perceived inefficiency to external bodies without an internal investigation is also professionally flawed. This premature escalation bypasses the college's internal procedures for addressing operational issues and can damage the institution's reputation unnecessarily. It demonstrates a lack of trust in internal processes and a failure to exercise due diligence in resolving issues at the most appropriate level. A third incorrect approach that involves making assumptions about the nature of the inefficiency based on anecdotal evidence or personal biases is ethically unsound and professionally irresponsible. This approach undermines the objectivity required in administrative decision-making and can lead to discriminatory practices or unfair conclusions. It fails to uphold the principle of evidence-based judgment, which is critical for maintaining a fair and transparent academic environment. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly define the observed problem or inefficiency. Second, gather objective data and evidence to understand the scope and potential causes. Third, consult relevant university policies, ethical guidelines, and best practices for data management and student affairs. Fourth, develop a plan for investigation or resolution that is fair, transparent, and respects confidentiality. Finally, implement the plan, monitor its effectiveness, and document the process and outcomes. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are well-informed, ethically sound, and professionally defensible.